Maths Chat Live on this Thursday afternoon. Today I'm very excited to do a solely book-based Maths Chat Live, and that will be 100 Ideas for Primary Teachers Maths by our very own Shannen Doherty, who is with us. And this is a live experience. It's sort of like live teaching in some ways. It's responsive, so whenever we're talking about something and something comes up, this is on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, so drop us a comment and we'll try and address your question or comment at an appropriate time during the stream. And for the first time, we're also doing a giveaway, actually. So Shannon's kindly offered to give a free copy of a book away. So all you have to do is just engage. So we'll see if you retweeted, liked, and then we'll pick your name from a hat and do a random draw and send you a copy. All right, enough of me. So I thought in this round of introduction, we just mention who we are and a favorite bit of teaching maths. So I'm Atul. I teach maths online as an online tutor. My favorite bit of teaching maths is, I was going to say all of it, but we'll have to stick with one part. It's probably numbers, digits, numerals, with place value later on, and particularly when we look at ancient number systems. I'm a bit of an obsessive with ancient number systems, ancient Egyptian and ancient Roman especially. Great, so we'll do a round. Let's start with you, Shannen. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Shannen. I am a primary school teacher and maths lead and author of the book we are chatting about. And I think my favourite thing to teach in maths is the mental addition and subtraction methods you teach in year 2 before you get onto column method and they start kind of relying on column for every little calculation. The way you kind of unlock that ability to manipulate numbers and do everything in their head, I think is really powerful.
Brilliant. I'll just Neil, you're on my screen next here.
Hi, I'm Neil. I currently find myself teaching year 3 4 days a week, and my favourite part of maths is actually, it's probably just because I've been teaching it recently, and that's looking particularly at the structures of multiplication and division, because this has been the first time since I really thought deeply about all of those, how to make them come to life in the classroom using bar modelling. So I'm kind of enjoying what it looks like in the classroom and doing it in the classroom, and also seeing the kids understand, oh yeah, maths isn't about the answers, actually it's being able to see those kind of deep structures to those problems and be able to use that and apply that in new contexts. So yeah, really interesting time for me, and that's me.
Fantastic. Over to you, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I am also primary school teacher, senior leader, general, do lots of things in my school. Don't really know exactly what my role is, but it works. My favourite bit of teaching mathematics is probably rounding. I really like the way that it has aspects of place value, magnitude, estimation. You get to use a lot of number line knowledge that you've hopefully embedded in the past, and it all just kind of, a lot of things come together. I think a lot of understanding about number begins to click for children when you teach something as seemingly basic as rounding. So yeah, really enjoy that.
Fantastic. Finally, Kieran.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kieran, primary teacher with a specialism in maths, and I think my favourite part of maths to teach would have to be, those activities that have a really low sort of threshold and a high ceiling where you can work, with all people sort of towards generalisation, and nothing gives me, I think, greater pleasure than seeing pupils sort of realise that they can go really far into maths, from quite an unassuming entry point.
Fantastic, and I'll also mention that these backgrounds are your podcast, Thinking Deeply About Primary Education, and including the Thinking Deeply About Primary Maths podcast series. I would highly recommend not just primary, secondary teachers as well, maths teachers, to tune into that one, and of course from your book as well. Brilliant. So yeah, I think we had a rough idea of just discussing 1 or 2 ideas each, maybe more. Maybe you can give away your whole book and do all 100 ideas. Who knows?
If we do really well, no one will have to buy it.
Let's not do that.
Nah, we'll just say a few. Okay, go on.
Yeah, and I've got my visualizer ready in case anyone wants to show anything. So, yeah, anyone got anything first?
I'll jump in if that's okay before anyone steals it. I love battle frames. Buy the book just to learn about battle frames. I haven't had the chance to actually teach that in, I think it probably works best in year 1, maybe year 2. A way of for those who, for some unknown reason, haven't got the book yet, effectively the idea behind it is you use a 10 frame, you put counters inside that 10 frame in a specific arrangement, just deciding whether you're going to go a horizontal arrangement for a 10 frame or a vertical arrangement for a 10 frame, but you keep it hidden from your partner, and then effectively your partner it works a little bit like Guess Who, has to work out from yes and no questions only, what is in the other person's 10 frame. Great way to get children visualizing numbers. Great way to get them discussing mathematics using terms like even numbers. Is it 5? Is it more than 5? Is it less than 5? All of this great stuff. Loved that idea in the book. I could pick others and no doubt will later, but I will let someone else speak now.
I'll switch over to my document camera, and it probably looks extremely tiny, but that's the battle frames.
It's idea 3 in the book.
And there's
This is so weird.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah, really love 10 frames actually. It's like
such a good resource.
I think they're quite underused. Maybe that's
I would say massively underused. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent most of I got 7 or 8 years into a 12-year so far career, having never seen one in any school that I'd worked in, and that seems crazy now.
Yeah, it speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah, I only started with them recently. I was using, tend to be like my Cuisinart rods. That's like my main one.
So does Neil.
And with the 10s, I use because I use a digital thing. You can have the 5s and 5, and you can partition them that way, and you can group things together and drop them. Bernie Westercott does that on the Braining Camp one, because you can do these things with. So it'd be in real life, it'd be grouping 5 manipulatives together. 5 counters would be trickier, but digitally you can just clunk them and then move them, and as a unit you can move them around. So
Maths Learning Centre is great for that as well. That's my go-to resource for 10 frame bits and bobs. The fact that you could do like 100 frames as well and this sort of thing, they're great.
Yeah.
Frame works a nice way for different. You want to challenge a few working in different bases. Get the iPad out, try base 2 and see what happens, and all the good fun. Just kind of link then to the 10 frame. I really like idea 19, Bridget. There's this idea that if you're doing kind of 7 plus 5, you'd have 7 on one 10 frame, 5 on the other 10 frame, and then look to add those together instead of relying on counting on. It's kind of visualizing, bringing over 3 from the 5 to complete one 10 frame. And then the idea is, of course, they have knowledge of the 10 frame by then, that they can see, oh yeah, well there's 10. I can see they can supertize that there's 2 left over straight away. It's 12, and I do that with a few children in my class currently. Just kind of like 10, 15 minutes every day, kind of spaced out throughout the day, and it's making such a massive difference to their ideas. Really effective in how their mental calculation is coming along. Even I only started teaching them just after Easter, and already kind of just those visualization methods are just helping them so much.
Yeah, I've seen Professor, I don't know if you've heard of him, Professor Mahesh Sharma has these visual cluster cards. They are like your playing cards, your pack of cards, but they don't have the numeral written on them, so they just have the actual like spades, and he uses that really effectively as well. So it's still, I think I heard it in your excellent talk, Chris, with maths and subitizing, so how you cluster the 5 pattern along, and then the 5 is 1 unit, and then 5 1, and so on and so forth. So
yeah, I mean, Rec and Rec is also a great resource for that. I saw there was a great bit of training by, I think I've got the name right, Amy Howe. Amy Howe's Rec and Rec training, and Rec are great because they also encourage you to see that 5 and a bit structure, because there's that 5 red and then 2 white, and you can say, bingo,
there we go.
Perfect, yeah.
I'm sure you'll have people on Twitter telling you off Chris now for buying into the government's plan to get abacuses back into schools.
Yeah.
I am nothing if not a shill for the government. Love that Conservative Party.
Don't we know it?
Yeah, definitely don't spend most of my day pontificating about them and what they do wrong.
But until we get our government granted, I make do with B strings until then. I find you just kind of you can get ones with about 50. I find 100 sometimes kind of a bit too wieldy, but sometimes you can just get 50. And sometimes, to be honest, I just want some in 10s and some in 20s. So I will just kind of cut and tie a knot in the ones that I want. But I kind of, for quite a few children, I kind of do, all right, we want to show 12. Can we do 12 in one push? And they can go 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing, just to kind of build up that idea of what the 12ness of 12, what it was in partitioning,
Yes.
tens and ones, all kind of useful little stuff there.
It's all about that number sense.
Yeah, you really know when a teacher of early number kind of says to you, "Oh no, I can't use I don't use the double-sided counters for that. I want to use the reckon or I want to use a bead string for that." You think, "Oh, okay, they're really getting somewhere with their understanding of teaching early number sense." It's like, yes,
they
they
get
will do
the
it in
stuff.
one movement. It's like, oh, okay, they're really thinking about what's going on with manipulatives there.
Yeah. Yeah, Amy's. I mean, I got the reckon rec before I saw the Bernie podcast, and then the Amy training. Oh, Amy's been on here actually as a on Mass Chat Live, and I've seen her a few, but I forgot to do that one finger, one push thing, and then I see the kids doing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And then I remember, yeah, one finger, one push. It's got to be like the 5 in one go. So, big fan of Amy Howe. Amy Howe and the Reckon Rec. Long before the government decided it's the abacus, the all-knowing abacus.
Me too.
I felt bad for the Reckon Rec when
I came out and defended it.
Called it an abacus when they.
I tweeted saying, "Can we stop calling it an abacus? It's a reckon and it's a wonderful resource." And everyone was kicking off because of the article. And then lo and behold, a day later, everyone was signing their schools up to the programme. So there we go.
I only learned the other day that it's Dutch, isn't it? Reckon as into ready reckoner, and rec means rack, so it's a reckoning rack in Dutch. I was like, that's so cool. I love that. We love learning that. Definitely tell the children that.
Yeah, that's in your number toolkit as well. You recommended some manipulated, right? It's idea 13. I'm looking at. I've got the whole list there.
I always think it's one of those ones that deserves to be kind of scaled up by a decent factor and needs to be in like every EYFS area, just ever. Because it's just such an easy way, like just that simple act of moving things, the kids would love it, and you can just get so much actual meaningful maths outside, and the kids would actually, I think Bernie in some of his Uganda videos that he tweets every now and then, he's there and he's building plenty of Reckon Recs for these adorable children, and the amount of maths that's going on there, the amount of fun that they're having is tremendous. And I think it's an easy win if you're looking at your outside area and thinking about how can I get some more maths in there. I think scaling up a Reckon Rec is a nice easy one to do.
Yeah,
I think I've seen one school I worked at, and I saw something along those lines where it was literally like old partially flat footballs kind of along a big like metal spike.
Yeah,
it was very cool. But I don't think they had 2 different colours, so that probably would have annoyed me a little bit other than that. But it was still 10. And it was still like moving them around.
Better than nothing.
Yeah. Ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Got some comments coming in. Well,
We do.
nothing to do with the Corinas in the United States driving, but paying attention, which worries me a little bit. Please drive safely.
Drive safely.
Yeah.
Does the message suddenly tail off halfway through?
Yeah.
Please be safe, Corina.
So thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, and Shivanand's tuned in from Delhi, who's just excited about the giveaway. No,
I was going to say, there's some really expensive postage and packaging potentially going on here.
Yeah, we missed the international part. We have an international audience, so.
Listen, guys. Oh gosh. Well, we'll see.
it will be. Well, we'll all chip in if necessary.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Sponsor the postage. It's yeah.
Yeah.
But, I haven't given an activity yet, so I think I'll jump in. I think my favorite one is called What It Is and What It Isn't.
Ah, yes.
And I really like that because it's so much more than an activity. It's a way of thinking about. And there it is. It's a way. It's a way of thinking about. I think our practice and how we approach maths. You know, because I think you could possibly say that a large part of maths is you have this sort of world and its definitions and its structures. And what we're trying to do is piece together where we are in relation to all those bits of information. If you're thinking about, well, what is this and what is it not? It's not just one sort of task you design for pupils. You could use that across the whole of their sort of career. So I thought, yeah, you know, that's, you know, you say 100 ideas, but actually there are quite a few ways of thinking about being a maths teacher, certainly, you know, primary, and I think the whole way across. And yes, that's definitely my favorite one in the book.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that one is one of those ones that you can just kind of apply to lots of different things. And I think if you read it and you get it and you go, oh, okay, this is what we need to start thinking about, this kind of variation with standard examples and non-standard and non-examples, then that really opens up your practice and your children's understanding, I think. So if you do have the book or you are ordering the book and you read that idea, you can use it in many different areas.
Yeah. Not beyond maths, obviously. I mean, you guys teach all the subjects, so you can use as example and non-example to compare and contrast. You know, you talk about that as well.
Indeed.
I think what I like about that in particular, there are a few other tasks, in fact, you know, quite a lot within the book that are gateways into other bits and pieces, lots of deeper thinking. I mean, I'm thinking even little things like 36, where you talk a little bit about I do, we do, you do, which is such an important idea for teachers in terms of how to engage children with content and get them kind of scaffolding this ideas that they can grasp along the way. There's so many bits and pieces in there that I love. I mean, even things like when you're talking about addition structures and subtraction structures, I just imagine like a teacher in the first few years of teaching coming across that and thinking of that as, oh, that's something I can apply into my classroom, seeing how they enjoy that, and then that opening up a whole different world of starting to think about the underlying structures behind arithmetic structures in particular behind problems. It's I in some ways I think it's quite a sneaky book. I feel like you've, in a really lovely way, it's you've sneaked in a lot of exceptionally deep thought via these accessible activities. Thinking about the one I mentioned earlier as well, like rounding rules, just the idea of beginning rounding at the very beginning when you're talking about 0 to 10. I've never had the perspicacity to go, you know, I'm doing that. I'm going to begin it from the very beginning. It's going to be that clear, and then I'm going to build it up from the very start. But I will now, having read the book.
Yeah, it's really nice that you said that, actually. I was talking to a couple of people yesterday from the London Thames Maths Hub, and they asked me sort of how I started the book and what my thought process behind it was. And I said I wanted it to be something that, like, an early career teacher can pick up and go, oh, I'm teaching fractions at the moment. What applies to what I'm teaching? Great, I can use this. This slips in really well. But also something that you said, I think you said it before, Chris, about it being a gateway. And there's enough in there for people to go, I'm going to read up on this, I'm going to go further. And it can be that gateway to further professional learning, I think. Hopefully, that's my goal anyway. Make it accessible, but also full of many deep thoughts.
I think it does that really well, because I think you could just take it as it is and go like, okay, I'm going to try some of these ideas across the year, and and the children will really benefit from that. And the teacher doesn't need to do anything more. She doesn't need to go, I really understand why that works or think particularly about it. It's just something to take off the shelf and go. And obviously not quite understandably, and I don't blame them, not all teachers think of teaching and education as the hobby that we're spending our Thursday night on a live maths chat talking about, into this idea of absolute hell, I'm sure. However, but then, as Chris said, you can then take this and actually it just can be that spark for someone to go, do you know what, I love this, I really want to know how this works, why it works, and understand more about it. So yeah, I think it hits those two levels really, really well.
Yeah, I think you can get as little or as much as you want from it. It's it's a dip in and out, or it's you really take it further.
Yeah, I wonder how many primary school teachers there will be for whom. I mean, I'm thinking about the section and gets. I'm checking my notes. 22 intelligent practice. I wonder how many primary teachers.
Well, then go and Google.
Will this be the first time they come across kind of the introduction to an aspect of variation theory, for example? Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah, it's not just. I mean, for me, I'm looking at idea 14, addition structures. The way you described it as addition structures, augmentation. I never thought about it, but when you think about the word augmentation, to augment, to add on, it makes perfect sense. And then I looked it up, and aggregation, so clumping things together. So that's. Yeah, there's a couple of terms I didn't know.
I can't possibly take credit for that one, but yeah.
I mean, I think this is the nature. You've brought together in one space lots and lots and lots of different ideas, bits and pieces from the NCTM spines, from all sorts. And like I say, it's a perfect introduction to this stuff.
Thank you.
Which is high praise indeed, because every time I talk to Chris about structures, he argues with me. So
that is true.
I did wonder if he was going to say, but you're not right.
No, I'm all about structures of arithmetic, and I do think, just generally speaking, not when it comes to structures of arithmetic, but kind of beyond that a little. I think that structure, and this isn't directed at you, Kieran. I mean, kind of more what I see on Edu Twitter. When people talk about, we want to talk about the underlying structure of the mathematics, if you kind of try and get them to pin them down a little bit on it, it's often just another way of saying, I just want you to, be a bit more thinky, or let's just. In some cases, there absolutely is, but some cases, just like, well, what exactly do you mean by the structures here? With structures of arithmetic, I get exactly where you're coming from. It's like, okay, I appreciate how this is an augmentation structure, or this represents aggregation, or this is additive comparison, or whatever you're talking about. Kind of beyond that, my expertise doesn't stretch far enough to know whether or not it actually, whether there is something behind it.
I think if we're going to talk structures, then idea 20 is a good one to talk about, because it's called spotting structures. And I really like this one because it takes the numbers out of it, and you just manipulate the deans in this case, but I guess you could use something else. And it's just about the children just seeing what is the same there and what is not, and how you can manipulate those. I was going to say manipulatives then, but that's a lot of manipulation there. But how you can move those manipulatives around and spot that structure, not to coin my title, but yeah, I just think that kind of idea of removing the numbers, because if they see the numbers, they're tempted to just calculate, but actually what you want is much deeper than that, and is all about them seeing what that number is made up of, which is something I think we lose the further up the school we go.
Yeah, so just physically move around the things on the dean blocks and actually manipulate them without thinking of the sort of numeral representation, and see how you can exchange. The principle of exchange is also so important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, to hopefully obviate all of those issues that we end up having in year 6, where you've got something like 70 plus 50 equals blank plus 30, and they just write 120 in the blank. You're like, somehow I've let you get this far without really grasping what the equal sign means.
I had
or what it can mean.
2 years ago, I put a question like that up for some year 4s, And my TA at the time was saying the wrong answer because she was just doing the, like you said, whatever it was, I don't remember what you said, 70.
70 plus 50 equals blank.
She was just something. Putting and going, no, miss, you're wrong. I was like, I assure you I'm not. And I was like, this equals this. This sign means these are equal, they're balanced. This is not, this is the answer. But yeah, so I mean, it's still rife in schools, I think.
Yeah, I think that was like my second week into teaching maths with my lot, and I was like, what does this sign mean? And the amount of just answer means where your answer goes. Yeah.
Did a whole workshop on that, actually, on the equality and equations. Have any of you heard of Invicta balance, or do you use any kind of actual physical balances where you put stuff on one side and the other side, and until they're balanced, you get the. I've seen. I haven't used one yet. Actually, I've just seen it in a recent workshop. It's called an Invicta balance, and you can start off with number bonds. So you can have 1 and 2, etc., and then you can have 3 on the other side, and they experiment with it until they balance, and that's when they get like equals. Is the idea of where?
No, in one of the schools, I was going through some cupboards just to have a look what was there and just being a bit nosy, and I found some. This was quite cool, weighted Cuisenaire rods, which I've not come across before. So, and I actually have, and literally just get a standard primary weighing scale, and just did lots of little experiments with that, and that seemed. I could guess why they were good quality. They weren't wooden ones, they were weighted and whatever other magic that happens with them. So they're probably quite expensive, but I liked that it just added that other layer that you could then use the Cuisenaire rods for because of that extra balancing. So they could actually have that physical seeing it of equal through trains and lining trains up, etc., but also then through the actual balancing of it as well, which I thought was a pretty nifty little addition that I hadn't seen before. I know for primary school teachers, if you're teaching algebra, Andrew Jeffrey does an amazing little bit with Numicon, because Numicon are also weighted, and he does a great little stint with Numicon in envelope and really kind of starting some algebraic thinking using balance weighing scale. So I think it's a nice way to introduce equality that way. I can't say it's something I've done myself. Kicking myself actually for not thinking about it until it was just mentioned now. So I'm going to write that down.
Equality is a massive one. I mean, you wouldn't believe it, but it's fairly common to get to A level, and then they're working with inequalities, quadratic inequalities. And the reason they don't understand why they work the way they do is because they don't know what an equality does, actually, what an equality. Then you have to like trace back down, all the way back down to what an equal symbol actually means before you can do inequalities.
Yeah, I remember like the first time, very early on, like with like White Rose maths. I think they were the first. That was like the first time since I was teaching that I've actually saw where the equal sign doesn't actually come. It's not like 2 plus 3 equals. It was something equals 2 plus 3, and they just changed that around. And the amount of just like conceptual mind blowingness that was going on with like some children's heads were like, but no, that because they've only ever seen it as 2 plus 3 equals that way. It was quite eye-opening to be like, oh yeah, you actually just don't, and this is just something that you just put in to be like, I'm going to put an answer now. It was interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting when they did the change to the modern, what do you want to call it, the most recent form of the SATs, where you've got the arithmetic paper and then the 2 reasoning papers. And I think it was either the first year or the second year, there were at least 5 or 6 questions that just were very basic calculations, but with the gap, the thing you needed to fill in, not in its traditional position, not something adds something equals blank, but somewhere else, or even just, still only one thing on one side, but it being on the left-hand side of the equation. And the number of children that bamboozled, and the number of children who just lost mark after mark after mark. Or at least that was how it felt while I'm supervising a SATs test. It feels like everyone's losing loads of marks. But on the subject of balances, you have to be careful to make sure that the balance in question is sensitive enough. Because I remember doing something like that. It wasn't with Numicon, but it was with cubes. and I had like 5 cubes on one side and then 5 on the other. And I said, watch what happens when I add another cube this side, and I add it in, and it just stays absolutely level. I was like, what have I done?
Should have practiced this beforehand.
Yeah,
we've all been there.
You mentioned the Invicta ones. Am I right in thinking they're the ones with the numbers sort of spaced to take advantage of the idea of like moments, like in physics? So it's like the ones hit 1 and 1 on this side, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 5, and you just hang a single thing. Yeah, I've seen them. I've never used them. They do look cool.
I just ordered one after seeing it. Because it'll be great for physics as well. Obviously, I don't know if you teach moments by year 6, but certainly in secondary you teach moments. So,
Thankfully, no moments. Oh my goodness, I don't know how we'd cope with that.
Yeah, seesaws.
I mean, I remember we could do the old physics teacher trick where you get a child to go outside the door and then say you're allowed to push as hard as you like, but you have to push just here. Whereas the physics teacher's got their hand right on the end of the door and they're just pressing like with their little finger. We could do that, but whether they'd learn anything or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
One that I kind of like is idea 55, which is playing card proportion. Just less so the idea of proportion, but more so just the idea of actually playing cards. I think they are another kind of underused resource. As you mentioned, the chap earlier, actually his name it escapes me, but he was using kind of the setup of what a playing card looks like, so they understand, for what 5 looks like without the numerals on them, or without the different kind of sets. But I think playing cards, if I could give like my families one thing at the start of like maybe like year 1, it'd be like, here are some playing cards, play snap. Here's like a printout of some quick little card games that you can just kind of play, go and enjoy and play. Because I just think playing cards are another kind of underused resource that can just open up a world of possibilities, particularly for our younger years. But as I say, Shannen absolutely nails an idea of using them there for proportion. So year 6, great little idea, that one. Big fan.
Yeah, I really agree with what you're saying about playing cards. I don't think kids play cards anymore.
No.
But I have so many memories of being on holiday playing cards throughout the evening, and that's just what we did. I wasn't sat with a screen in front of my face, but they're just not used to it. And I think even just having the cards in front of you and having like a 7 and having 7 diamonds, and not consciously seeing that it's a 7 or counting that it's a 7, but just being so used to seeing that representation of 7 and having that kind of in your face representation of the numbers, I think probably helps quite a lot, because you're just seeing it constantly when you're playing, you're flicking through, and they just don't have that. And you're right, they giving those out at the start of the year is a really nice idea. I may steal that one, Neil Almond.
Take it.
And some games that they can play.
Just kind of get them to group as many of the different ways that you can group those 7 things as you can.
Yeah.
We have the same issue in secondary, where you have probability questions based on like how many totals there are, and some haven't actually played a game of cards ever in their lives, so they have no idea.
And they just have no idea. Yeah, they don't know what a picture card is. They don't.
Never played 21. Yeah, bit of backgammon.
Yeah, madness.
I like though how so for those unfamiliar with how like the 100 ideas kind of structures work, like there always has to be like a little quote at the beginning, and I love that you've actually managed to find someone who says our children were used to playing cards. I'd love to know who gave you that quote, because as you say, I think they're a dying breed. So
Tell you what,
kudos to whoever that is.
My friend Yashi did a card club in my first school, and I believe she carried it on until COVID hit. So her lunchtime club was cards. And they loved it.
It's a great little idea for a club. That is.
Yeah. There you go. You can steal that one back.
Yeah, well.
Not as good as video club. That's
not
the.
Oh yeah. Sit at the back with your marking.
That's the one you're after. Any NQTs listening?
Yeah. If you're asked to do a club, film club.
Yes, right. We're getting to write a review afterwards. It's fine.
Shivanan has a question. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but it says students say how is -2 plus -2 equal to -4? Why not 0?
Like that actual maths.
Yeah, actual maths, yes.
Right, that's
I
all.
think
Get
maybe
your
It's
document
8 o'clock.
camera on and zero pair
Zero
up.
pair them up.
0 pair it up.
Yeah. I think he's just asking for a misconception. Why did they have that misconception? If you could clarify that, that'd be great. But there is a 0 pair thing in there, right? In which
There is.
Yeah.
There is. I think
I
I
believe it was.
asked for it to be like.
Yeah,
Not
I
that
think it.
I don't have any right to listen to what I say whatsoever, but obviously she told me, I was like, I think you should put 0 pairs in.
No.
I think at that
was
point,
you.
you're so desperate for ideas, you would have taken anything. It just so happened that this one semi-decent.
Yeah, idea
You've
11.
just written about 0 pairs, and you sent me it like, here you go.
I was like, yeah, you can have that one. In fairness, big shout out to Bernie Westcott because his 2.5 hour little video, 2 hour long video with Craig Barton
Yeah.
was 100% mind blowing to me. I remember that was like, okay, I've been teaching maths wrong for a very, very long time.
God, we all had that moment.
Time to sort myself out.
What a man Bernie is.
0 pairs came from that video, so shout out to Bernie. I'm sure he's not listening. He's either
Hi, Bernie.
He
playing
usually tunes
guitar.
in. He usually tunes in. Yeah. Hi, Barney.
Bernie
Knowing
loves
Bernie, he's like snowboarding somewhere or
that. Yeah, or
This has
jamming
been-
in his basement with
Yeah.
like
He's
some
just
kind
been-
of heavy metal, like
riding a
rock stuff.
horse through a lake or something.
Motorbike.
Basically, yeah.
Love Bernie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't follow him, because the man is a legend.
We'll have to get him on. Yeah, we had him once last year, but yeah, I'm still trying to get him onto a panel. We'll definitely have to get him
He
on.
spoke at Brewed Math last year, and he was wonderful.
Yeah.
That stuff was so interesting. Do you remember about the animals?
Yeah.
I was going to say 2 of you were there. I
Animal
was just sat there like, this man is incredible.
Yeah.
Any opportunity to anyone not following Bernie Westcott,
Get
do
on
it.
it.
Do it
That
now.
causality bomb right at the end, didn't he?
Yeah.
You could mention what Brewed Maths is to people who don't know, so I can sort of attend future
Absolutely.
ones. Yeah.
So Breweds are a grassroots movement created by Ed Finch and Darren Simon, and it was all about pedagogy over a pint, I think was their tagline to start with. And it was a case of getting together on a Saturday in the function room of a pub and listening to some wonderful educators talk whatever they wanted to talk about. And so there's been loads of them up and down the country, and I was sat at a maths conference one day thinking, my God, this would be better if it were in a pub. And so I decided that we needed a Brewed Maths, and these lovely gentlemen helped me organise it. And we had Bernie, Kieran and Lloyd did a talk. We had Dr. Helen. We had someone help me.
Pete Maddox, he was there.
Pete
Maddox.
Mattock, Andrew Jeffrey, Joe Morgan. It's all coming to me now.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful day. And so everyone did a sort of half an hour talk on a mathsy topic of their choice. We were in a pub. People were drinking their drinks of choice, and it was a very wonderful day.
It was. We were meant to have Mark McCourt there as well, but
We were. Mark McCourt will have to do the next one.
Yeah.
Amanda
Even if
Davies.
it's just to plug tutor, I'm all for it.
And complete maths, yes. Well, I
Yeah.
can have done some work on that one. So
We
I'll
do
be,
want to do ones, hopefully maybe October time, if we're allowed,
Right.
all together.
Who knows? And Gareth Metcalf, we asked Gareth, he couldn't do it, but he kindly gave us some resources. and
Yes,
things.
he did give us some resources, and he is on the list for next time, as in on the list to ask. So Gareth, if you're watching,
And listening.
what you doing in October? Now we've zoomed him as part of your end of season quiz, Kieran. I feel like we're old friends at this point, so he owes us, if
We
anything.
did keep up quite late, so I don't think we're his friends. And
On a selfish level, can we ask for like repeat performances? Because I've seen I think a shorter version of Kieran and Lloyd's just talk on narratives and teaching narrativity. I want to see the live version of that. I have to. I mean, I've got a pretty detailed version of it because I've read Kieran's fantastic book. But I want to see that live. I can just imagine because the chemistry between the two of them as well would be.
And the accents.
And the accent.
Oh well, yeah, as well.
Yeah, it's just
for the ears.
Yeah, I missed that as well. So I mean, I'm sure you can get into now that we're doing this kind of Zoom tech stuff. You can eventually start recording them and having them online as well. Because you've got an international audience right now, and the lovely Amanda Davies even insisting we need another brew and maths.
I love Amanda Davies. Hi, Amanda.
Yeah. Okay. Just looking at some other things. To touch or not to touch, idea 66.
About the bar model, the bar graph.
Bar graphs, yeah.
It's been a while since I've cracked this open, guys. So.
Yeah, and show them some incorrect examples of graphs. Asked to explain what the mistake has been made. Amanda
Anything
says.
like that, I think, is quite powerful. Because I think children like not having to find the answer themselves and knowing that the answer's there, but someone's made a mistake. It's quite easy for them to then go in and debug almost. They feel like the pressure's off because they don't have to come up with an answer. They can then just do the telling off. A bit like if you ever get a child to edit and improve their own writing, they can never find mistakes in their writing. They can never find faults in their writing. If you ask them to edit someone else's, they'll purple pen all over the place. So I think they like going in and finding mistakes.
Yeah, role reversal, isn't it? So you are the teacher now, find the mistake.
I mean, you mentioned 66. Big fan of 67 as well. Story of a graph. You explained it more beautifully than I could. But yeah, that's a lovely activity with children. Really like that one.
And I like 69 as well. Don't be mean, show them the mean. Just because I had literally no idea conceptually what the mean was, apart from just you add it all up and then just divide it by the number of people that are there. So the idea that there's actually a structure of the idea that all being shared out equally, that was a new one for me. So I really enjoyed learning from that. And whenever I teach the mean, I will definitely be seeing something like that. Making you can to make it more visual.
And in that one, Kieran had the most cookies.
And
so lucky Kieran.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it libelous? I'm not sure. What I really like is that it's very easy for graph work and for data to become very repetitive, and year on year you do the same sort of ideas, and you don't really go. I think graph work in year 1 isn't much different from graph work in year 6, and so what you're doing is you're offering this way of let's think about what's going on here really. There's some really good graphs on Enrich, and they have old Olympic sports. Well, not each graph shows an Olympic record and how it changed over time. And I think I normally end up changing them a little bit because some of the sports the kids might not have sort of the cultural reference to understand how it's changed. So whenever I was reading, I was thinking back to those graphs and how I can sort of tie the two together, and because I love giving those, looking at the 100 meters over the last 100 years and how that's really changed.
That's a really good tip, actually.
I've seen it as leveling the towers as well with the little Cuisenaires, if you choose the right ones. And also these days you see that like mean line on like on screen time apps, or on my Fitbit you have like the mean line, where we can actually see an application of it, and these apps are becoming better at showing the mean line, because it's not just children learning it at school. It's like if you're monitoring, just understanding what data is, what the mean really is, and you see all these towers and then that line there, so I can directly link it to those kind of applications, yeah, especially Fitbits, if anyone's got one. Yeah.
Yeah, a Fitbit is a great idea. Nobody should be using my screen time in class because it is not a good example to set.
I don't show my screen time either. It's fine. Just look one up
You
from the
can
internet.
imagine the questions or the horror, just like, why do you not have a live?
Great for stacked bar graphs as well, if you want to go.
You just have a Nokia.
Old school.
Yeah, it doesn't have any signal, so I might as well not have a phone at all. Did Johnny Hall model stuff about the mean at the last math comp at 25? I can't remember if I watched it on the CPD college or if it was his.
Johnny Hall's definitely done something about the mean, hasn't he?
And he was looking about getting the kids to think about, well, what do I change so that we still have the same mean and things like that. I think it was one of many wonderful sort of different ideas he shared that morning. I think it was them, but it's hard to tell because when you're watching the screen, you don't really associate yourself with a time and a place. It's just what happened on the screen, So I'll have the same conversation 6 or 7 times. I probably said all the stuff I've said tonight the last time I was on, but I just can't separate the different memories on it.
Yeah, I mean it's because the idea of the mean, I see that with so many of my pupils. It's the algorithm, add them all up and divide by how many there are. But if you link it up to, for me, the towers is a good one. Is make one gigantic tower of all of them, and then divide them equally into how many there are. So that links up the algorithm to what they're manipulating with the little ones. It probably is Johnny Hall. It's quite a LaSalle way of doing it. I got it from them about 3 years ago with this little one. I love Cuisinart rods. That's my main manipulative. So yeah, I mentioned that actually. I think you've got the Cuisinart rods in one of the ideas. I'm just looking at.
Yeah, I tried to get a bit of everything in there.
18 rod bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that, again, a little bit of a gateway for people to go, oh, there's more than just Numicon, or there's more than just multi-link, because I imagine there are still some schools that don't have even Numicon in them.
Yep.
So I think I try to get different manipulatives in there.
I think there's a nice subtle message for teachers who, I mean, if you're anything like me, who came across Cuisinart in like a school cupboard years back and thought,
What?
wow, these beads are odd. They're joined together and they're coloured. So the fact that they're just looking there, there's a particular phrase we say, if the orange rod here represents 10, or if it's worth 10, just that little message to teachers to say, like, oh, it doesn't have to be. This is just one way of using these Cuisinart rods, and that's kind of the whole point, that you don't it can be any value, or it can have no specific value, and you can just talk about relationships. Is a really nice, subtle point that you get across for people like me a few years back who comes to the Cuisinart and doesn't really know its value.
Yeah, there's that video called The Zen of Cuisinart Rod or something, where he makes any rod any value you want, including algebraic ones, X, Y. You can make the white one a quarter, so I got 2 quarters, 3 quarters. And he does, it's about a 5-minute video, and he does a whole load of them, and it's incredible what you can do with the rods. You can do, all sorts. I mean, it's basically, you said, as a bar model type thing as well. You can do ratio and proportion later on. You can do bits of Pythagoras theorem, you can do some angle stuff. It works very well.
I kind of want you to now model Pythagoras with them, so I'm just like, can you record that and send it out?
Yeah.
That interests me.
Or do it live.
We'll do it live, yeah.
I don't want to put the pressure on, but
Do it live. Yeah. There is a ATM task or something. I think you can just put it on Google. So you get the 3 rod and the 4 rod and the 5 rod, and you stack them up, and you get a right angle triangle. Obviously, it only works with a certain set of rods, the Pythagorean triples. And there's a task where you have to fit in the 3 square 3 3 3 rod, 4 4 4 rod, and then make it fit exactly on the 5 5 5 5 5 rods, and they play around with it, and then the areas are the same. So that's the one. Karina Merg at home. She's driven, so she's safe. She's a relief for all of us.
Your home safe, Karina. Thank you for sticking with us.
Yeah. Just a random thought. Aren't we maths people really lucky we get to work and play with these things? Yeah.
Gosh,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, I really do.
I think that's a good message there whenever you're introducing kids to a new manipulative. Kind of that first lesson, don't really plan on getting much formal mathematics done.
No.
Just give them that hour to explore, conjecture themselves, and get that, especially at primary, get that excitement of these new things out of the way before you then kind of rush into any kind of formal mathematics.
Yeah, I remember being on a maths mastery course with, I want to say, the South East London Maths Hub. And it was being run by this wonderful woman, and whose name I can't remember, but her husband was a head teacher. And at the start of every year, they bought every reception child the little carry case of Cuisenaire rods.
Oh.
And they took them up throughout the school with them. And so they had done all of their exploration before. And then by the time they got to you, say in year 4, year 5, they just were so hot on them, and they'd done all the train making, and they'd done the pictures, and they knew that not every, they didn't have a specific value, and you could change the value, and they knew what 2 rods would make an orange rod, because they'd done all that. And I was just like, I want to be in that school where you buy every child a carry case of Cuisenaire rods, because you really see the value in that, like, dedicating that time to it. I'm not in that school, but I would love to be.
If you look at the book Cuisenaire Early Years to Adult, I think was it Helen Williams, Mike Alderton, and Simon Gregg?
Yeah.
You could easily spend 2 years going through the activities in that book.
Yeah.
Early on, and because when you're speaking, Shannon, what I'm thinking is, okay, you've got teachers who haven't used this stuff before. They're not in schools where they are part of the carry case, and they're probably nervous about what to do with Cuisenaire rods and with manipulatives in general. But as you're speaking, I'm thinking, right, just give it a go, and then look back on how it went that year. Maybe not even wait a year. Look back, and then I think by the time you're 2-3 years in, you're actually pretty proficient, because things start making sense in your own head as well as the pupils.
Yeah, we had the manipulatives panel for the secondary teachers, which Pete Mattock was leading, and there's a lot of teachers who haven't used manipulatives or don't feel confident with them. It's a bit of a catch-22. I don't feel confident with them, so I won't use them. And Pete was saying, actually, we've got to a point where they are in year 9, year 10, year 11 even, and this stuff not working. So take a gamble and go for it. And you'll have colleagues like us who will guide you on how it works. And it's like becoming fluent at doing anything. Like teaching is the same thing. And you just have to try it out. There will be, when I first started using Cuisenaire rods, in that session, I think I don't remember if I was told get them to play with it. So for about a year, I didn't get them to play with it firsthand until I got that book. Then I realized, oh, that's so silly. It makes perfect sense to have to play with it. So there will be some things you get wrong, but now we are in a community. I mean, back then I was an online tutor who didn't know any other tutors, so I made those mistakes, and I just kept making them until I joined this community and started learning from others. But especially online, we have such a wealth of, the canon of knowledge is incredible. So
yeah, we're very fortunate.
You do just have to jump into it and just kind of believe what our elders and knowledge and years of this thing is saying, is telling us that manipulatives work, and this type of manipulatives can work for this. And even if you're unfamiliar with it, I'm using, like, I just ordered that Invicta balance. I've never used it, so there's going to be a learning curve associated. I use loads of manipulative, but there still is going to be a learning curve associated. There's no way out of that learning curve. There'll be some car crashes, but you learn, they'll learn, and you eventually get better at it.
Those mistakes are a large part of what getting better at teaching is, I think. I can think of every mistake I've ever made, and I think it's about what you do with it. And when you see other people with great ideas, you just pretend that you already knew that. Oh yeah, I've seen Cuisinart do that before, and then just sort of bluff it.
Yeah, they go, quick, I need to do that. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think we all make those mistakes, and I'm sure when I was training, manipulatives were never mentioned. I think I only got into maybe my second year, and they started to become a thing in our school. But there is still, we're still faced with those teachers who go, I'm not really confident. I teach year 6. I'm not going to do it this year. And it can be a bit of a battle, but I do think that they will see that it pays off eventually. But you have to just get in there and show them, I think.
Yeah, just get harder at secondary, so they start seeing it as sort of childish and get a rec or counters. But you can do, I don't know if you've seen Johnny Hall's workshop on counters. He's doing like arithmetic series and all sorts of really complicated proofs with 2-sided counters. So they're incredibly versatile. It's one of the first things I tell parents of, because I do a lot of intervention work. So I'll say, well, they look really simple, but do not be fooled by their appearance. You can do, just tell them Pythagoras with Cuisinart rods, like that, something like that. Fantastic. We're coming to a full hour, so probably start wrapping up because there's not that many questions coming. Maybe any kind of parting thoughts or any other ideas you wanna?
Well, just one thing you mentioned there about, you have to make mistakes, and I think Kieran's absolutely on the money there. I think for those teachers, particularly in secondary school, that are maybe a bit more nervous than others about trying this stuff, we're in a fortunate position. You've mentioned Johnny Hall there, the fact that we've got online manipulatives that teachers can maybe just dip their toe in the water first, can have a little play at home with these things to see how they might show, going to contradict myself entirely here, the underlying structures of certain things, but they'll the fact that you can initially just use them as this is a way I'm going to just show something to the class to see if visually this makes a little bit of sense that it didn't perhaps do without that visual representation. And then when it does make sense, you think, oh, hang on, maybe there is this greater value in using these resources, the real version, with the kids. So I think if you've got teachers who are in a bit of doubt about whether they are effective, they can kind of dip their toe in the water with the online equivalent, and then hopefully see their value, and then make the investment of time and money in the departments in which they work.
No, they're really good online. I mean, I tutor online, and I think my introduction to Johnny was, I've been using your website, like 4 or 5 years ago. I've been using your website to teach my students all over the world through your thing, because you can still manipulate them, especially on iPads nowadays, because you're manipulating. You still have that tactile. You don't have that 3D sense but it's good enough. I've used it for a while, so it's a really good way in. But yeah, eventually you want that, like the full experience of real manipulatives. But it's great that the cost is basically zero. Just put it on your whiteboard and just show them, and then you can, or if you have iPads or anything, or even draw them out. Or paper is a manipulative. I think we talked about in that, like in our secondary chat, you can get a strip of paper, call it one, fold fractions. Paper itself, strips of paper. There's loads of manipulatives you can hack up without investing in a lot.
There's a cracking idea in Shannon's book about
I just can see your face, Chris, going.
Multiplication. Yeah, like, so fold it 3 times, fold it 4 times. Oh, there's 12. Where did that come from? I can't remember what number that is. I apologise. I've not got it memorised yet.
43.
43. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for the homework you've done here, Chris, and the notes you've made. I appreciate it.
I'm diligent and nervous.
I think, Shan, you need to do your shout out for idea 48. Because that was a big one. I remember you having a deep conversation and quite a few people talking about increase, percentage, decrease. So
yeah, the whole reverse percentages thing.
Yeah, that's a big one that got people interested, if I recall, when the book came out. So maybe.
Yes, and when I was on the Thinking Deeply About Primary Education podcast.
Yes.
Season 1, episode 7. Yeah, I think this one flummoxes a lot of teachers, definitely a lot of children, but I think teachers kind of steer clear of this idea because they don't really understand it. They don't really understand how it works. And so I think the idea of using this bar model to show the price and then the kind of the ghost bit of the bar model, as I call it, I think really is a powerful image. And I know that my friend Chris, who is a secondary maths teacher, listened to the podcast and then sent me a text saying, this is what I want my teachers to be doing. He's the head of department, and he was like, this is how I want them to be showing reverse percentages. And so he was like, can you just send me the idea? Because but he has bought the book, so it's fine. But I think the idea of like a pre-sale price, people go, I don't know how to work that out. And because there are teachers who are not confident with bar models, which is such a shame, because I love a bar model. A bar model is probably one of the most versatile things that we can use. I think it's a shame that there are people who don't see the power in them. So, I mean, I'm more than happy to stick this on Twitter and show the world my pre-sale bars idea 48. Why did you make that face, Neil Almond? But I remember now a lot of people saying, oh, that sounds a really good idea. I want to see how that works. And I remember DMing a picture of it to a few people because they were just like, I'm teaching this and I have no idea what you're talking about, but you might be able to help me. There we go.
There we go, yeah. We'll probably end up tweeting your whole 100 ideas soon enough, I think, screenshotting or something.
Taking a picture. Oh,
yeah.
maybe 2 pictures.
Not that I'm sure Shannen would say she's trying to heavily promote her book, but I think just because it's called 100 Ideas for Primary Teachers, that doesn't exclude the secondary market either. And I think there are secondary school teachers, not because there is gold in here, and we all know mathematical development isn't linear. Just because they're in year 7 doesn't mean that they're ready for the year 7 curriculum or ready for year 8. And so actually, if you're struggling to think about, well, what do those prerequisites actually look like, I actually think this is probably a decent place to probably start out with and have a look and see actually what are the kind of thing that primary school teachers are looking at. Because I think you're planning on having a conversation soon anyway, Atul, but a primary and secondary passionate math teacher get together would be quite an interesting debate to be had. I'm sure it'll get quite fiery in a nice way.
Yeah.
Beyond the hypotheticals, my partner, a secondary maths teacher, has read 100 Ideas. Has also read Kieran's second book, Thinking Deeply About Primary Education, and the way that's changed how she considers parts of the year 7 teaching she does, particularly with the children who struggle. Is notable. She talks about that a lot. So, highly recommended, particularly for secondary teachers. Just want a shortcut to understanding a little bit more about the primary phase. Both of those books are, really highly recommended from her at least, and from me.
There's loads of stuff that comes up straight up on a GCSE paper. I'm just looking at scale factor shapes, idea 56.
Loads of it.
Just I didn't even think about it, calling it not a secondary. It's by default, and it's a secondary as well. But it's a really good point here, and we do actually have a panel, a couple of weeks. We've got a mixed panel, primary and secondary. So. Which is great, where we can get these conversations going. And there's so much maths in primary, there is a phenomenal amount.
Some say too much.
Some do say too much, and then some others say
there's not enough.
Kieran's like, get rid of all the other subjects, just maths. Well, how doesn't Mark McCall? He puts it in a certain way. Do you remember when we went to his that conference that day about, it was just like an introduction to mastery with complete maths, and he quoted the number of objectives there are in the number of years, and he broke it down into days, and he was like, so really it's not that much. I'd like him to tweet that so I can then remember what he said.
I seem to recall and again, I'm massively paraphrasing, but on several podcasts he talks about how there's only like 300 mathematical ideas to grasp between the ages of like 3 and 18, and I haven't seen what these 300 ideas. I would love to see what they are, but I'm going to start speaking now before I get myself in trouble.
It's for the best.
Yeah. Oh, I
He
think
will be watching, obviously.
Yeah, I can see where it's coming from, because I mean, I have this kind of really alternative space where I get this unique opportunity where I would say start with a year 4 student. And the longest I've gone with is year 6 student, all the way up to A level. And then you just see how slowly, because once you've seen them through all those years, and I've got some going from year 4, and I've just got this in my head, I've got these 300 ideas or whatever Mark mentions, and I know like this is what you do, because I think you're ready for it now. This is what you do, this is what you do. And I'm thinking, at some point you'll be doing vectors later, so it's better if I show you directed number right now in 1 dimensions, and then we go to 2 dimensions later on. So when you see, because Mark holds this picture of the whole thing in his head, because he's obviously done it with students all the way through, and some old school, all way schools, all through schools, you can see that. But once you can see actually there is not a lot, and even Pete said in his, mostly in school level maths, it's like proportional reasoning just comes up in different forms, percentages, fractions, proportion itself, scale factors, trigonometry, and once you see it like that and you have the time, it just comes down to time, isn't it? So
it's the distribution, I would say, of the mathematics, not quantity. It's the amount that seems to be squeezed into, say, kind of key stage 1, and then how much slower you sometimes have to go with key stage 2 content because certain prerequisites aren't embedded. But yeah, what you said before about the idea of how much overlap there is between the GCSE curriculum and particularly in the foundation paper, reminds me of literally the hundreds of times where I've said something and Kieran's gone, no, that's not true, and he's been right and I've been wrong. We've had this exact conversation where I said, no, there can't possibly be that much overlap between key stage 2 SATs and foundation paper. And it's like, no, there is. Yeah, there is, Chris, he would say. And again, he was right. There is. It seems to be the case that you can do actually quite well, get to maybe grade 4-ish with just key stage 2 knowledge, which says a great deal. I feel
like we should try that out with some of our year 6s, just for fun.
Yeah.
Some of our keen ones.
Yeah. But I do think the way that you do teach certain things will speed up the process. I think if you really do bar model the structure of division really well, really carefully, and those kids leave year 3 knowing quotative and partitive division, they can see those structures. When it comes to fractions of amount, that jump isn't as, and you're teaching that via bar modeling, it's not that much of a conceptual jump as perhaps it might be for students who haven't been taught, right, this is what quotative division looks like, this is the bar model that represents it, this is partitive division, this is the bar model that represents that, let's practice making these and doing that. So
I do think I think your point's important. Sorry to interrupt you, Neil Almond. And I think it is like how it's sequenced, but also, and Chris said about how it's distributed. So I think it'll be very interesting for people to sit down and think about how if they were in charge and had to keep the same 300 ideas or whatever it is, how they would distribute it. Because Neil Almond, are you the one who wants to get rid of fractions in key stage 1?
Get rid of fractions in key stage 1, probably, yeah.
And we all think time should go. However, if we had to keep it, where would you put it?
What, time?
Yeah.
Homework.
Yeah.
Well, we all said parents should teach it, but if you had to teach it and you had to teach it in class, where would you start it?
Physics lessons. GCSE.
Not in year 1.
The question exactly when should you teach time is getting a little bit meta for me, I think.
Yeah, time is complex. You've got the fractions element of it. You got the base system.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mathematical structure in time.
A lot. And you're asking children who don't understand base 10 fluently to then all of a sudden jump through to base 60.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that's not helpful.
And Chris, I think you said before, they learn when they're just ready. They ask you what the time is, and you have that chat with them there and then, and you keep coming back and you ask them again, and they ask you, and they'll get it when they get it.
Yeah, teaching time's a 5-minute job if you do it one-to-one when they're interested in it, or it's a week's job if you're trying to teach a whole class of 30. So yeah, I used to think
a week, like you're doing something better than I am.
Yeah. But hobby horse of mine is just I used to just ditch it for like when that year 6, like you're doing loads of stuff to prepare for SAT. You're teaching as well, obviously, but you're also kind of getting them ready. I just did not do time, and then just taught them one-to-one, and then towards the end started thinking about time problems once that aspect of it was clear. But teaching them one-to-one, it's like trying to teach children to tie their shoelaces. If you try and teach 30 children to tie their shoelaces at the same time, you're getting nowhere. But one-to-one, you're going to get somewhere.
One of my children, it was a couple of months ago now, came up to me and said, "Miss, is it 2:30 o'clock?" And I was like, "Now we're ready. You're interested, so let's have this chat." It's like, because you've really thought about that, and I like it. But most of my other children, not bothered about the time, don't care.
Yeah. They're just asking, is it playtime?
Is it playtime? Is it lunchtime? How long until the end of the day? I'm sorry being with me is such a painful experience.
I must have read it somewhere, I can't remember where, but I think similar to Shannon's story of everyone get their own little briefcase of Cuisinart rods, I think this school kind of just bought everyone like a really cheap, I think it was maybe about year 2, just a really cheap analog watch. And they just said, if you can tell me the time by the end of the year, you can keep the watch.
Yeah.
And a lot of people and a lot of kids kept the watch.
That's pretty cool.
I think if you went in at like year 3 with that, brilliant.
I like that idea.
The sense of jeopardy when there's a week of school to go and you still can't tell the time, but you like it as a fashion accessory.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah.
You just have a little digital on the side just to cheat it.
Game the
Get your
system.
phone out.
Still learning about time. We've got one question from Karina, which I'm happy to take if need be. Is there a way to use manipulatives to teach exponents?
Crack on.
Yeah.
Well, that's much more your field, Atul, with secondary school. I mean, we deal a little bit with squares, cubes, etc. But no.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take that. The way I do it is obviously I do use a virtual whiteboard, so we can use that chess story, which is grain of rice on the first board. What happens when you double it on the second board, double it again on the third board, and keep doubling it. So whatever was on the last board, keep doubling it, and by the time you get to like 64, it's some kind of ridiculous number. So the way I do that on the whiteboard is start with 1 dot, and my instruction to my people is double it. So select the 1 dot, double it, so you got 2 dots. Now whatever the last thing was, select all of it together and double that, make a copy of that. So 2 to 4, select the whole lot of 4, make copies, and very soon they just run out of space on the digital whiteboard. And then do the same again for 3, so triple, take 1, make 3 copies, because you can do that on the digital whiteboard, make copies very easily. Triple, that fills up very, very quickly. And then for A-level stuff, I'll eventually go on to like the growth rate of E 2.7 is a natural thing. There's a loads of things but you can do it with manipulatives, digital manipulatives. It's also comes down to if they understand what exponentiation is already in abstract terms. If they already understand squaring and cubing, then raised to the power 4 is repeated multiplication. If they already understand it in abstract terms, then you might not need a representation at all. You can just because they know it in the abstract. But if you do need a representation, there's that's just one way that works for me, but there's probably other ones as well. Thanks, Karina. I like that. Okay, cool. Little Gem Sen, love that. I think that was about time. Time is another funny one. What I do is, this again, as you said, Chris, like if they're not interested in it, you can't teach it to them. But I find that some of them, when they get older and they start needing to catch a bus or be at some place, and they have to actually really think about time, rather they're not living in the now anymore, in the present where everything's done for them. They have to, so there's a lot of these calendar apps that have what I would call a linear view of time, where the timeline is just going down, and some other people do it in a linear sort of left to right with sort of a number line, and that the spacing between, it's just like a number line, so they can kind of map what it looks like on a linear view with the analog one or with the digital clock. And I do that with some of my students in every session. I just get them to move the clock every now and then. So it's a really slow conditioning. Time is not something you can teach in like one session. It really does take time. It takes many sessions to get all that. It is so complicated because you have the fraction, the base, the language.
The idea of taking the analog clock and putting it online sounds a lot like 96.
The one that I just went. If you want to know more about this,
time to break it down.
Go and read Claire Seeley's blog.
I was going to say, Claire Seeley's done a blog about time, hasn't she?
Yeah, I sent her a message and said, I want to include an idea about time, but I don't know anything other than your lovely blog. That's the only thing I would advise. So can I put it in there? And she was like, it's not my stuff. You crack on. It's like, but still, I'll just say.
Yeah, I've never actually taught using what she outlined in that blog.
No, I'd really like to, but we've had a pandemic and I haven't been able to teach time for 2 years. So maybe next year.
So yeah, if anyone's listening and they have used that blog, you have, Chris? Is that
Oh no, I was crossing my fingers that maybe next year we'd be actually teaching again.
I haven't done it to a whole class. I did it as I would say, not even an intervention, but I did it with a small group when I read the blog, because I was like, I'm off to try this. And I did it with a group of weaker year sixes. It was good. But I want to go from the start.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if anyone has used it. Reach out, let us know. How did you get on with it? I'd be interested.
I think there's definitely a task design way of thinking about this book. In terms of, I think one of the ways to get a lot out of this is for two teachers to sit down and ask themselves, well, what's Shannen thinking? I talked to Gareth Metcalf about loving to go through his stuff, and I'm thinking, the more you guys talk, the more I'm thinking, right, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to go, well, what are the principles that Shannen has decided upon before designing this task? And how can then I use that to improve my practice? And I think, that's probably, you were talking about final thoughts a while ago, and that was the one I thought, okay, that's definitely my big takeaway from this chat, is sort of putting that together and thinking, okay, what is informed Shannon's decision making for this task, and how can I use that in others?
If anyone can get into my head, that would be wonderful. A scary place to be.
Fantastic. I think Shivanand says he's midnight in India, so need to go. I think that's a good cue for us to.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for everyone for joining us and your lovely questions, and for keeping us going. This is a recording anyway, so if you still get any more questions and thoughts, there's loads in here, and we will select someone to send the book to. We'll see who was engaging, and hopefully you'll have a free copy shipped anywhere in the world. You can chip in for postage costs. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll just wrap this thing up and we'll have a quick chat and we can finish up. So we'll just do a very quick wave for the Twitter screenshot. Thank you everyone.